Yo guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. I just saw The Amateur, directed by James Hawes, starring Rami Malek and Lawrence Fishburne. This film is really a blend of the Bourne films and The Accountant. Interestingly enough, John Barenthal also makes an appearance in this film. He has a very small role, but thought it was an interesting connection because, again, it's very similar to The Accountant in the sense that this sort of stuffy desk nerd that works for the CIA is now tasked with seeking out justice for someone that has wronged him. And I think it's a pretty well-made film. I think that Rami Malek, that's the perfect role for him. He seems to fit these roles really, really well, and what little I've seen, just in the clips that I've seen of him in the show Mr. Robot, it seems to be a similar character with a very similar personality. So again, I feel like he just fits this role. It works for him. He was in a film a few years ago with Jared Leto and Denzel Washington called Little Things, where he played again I don't want to say this to be off-putting at all, but almost like maybe he exists on the spectrum to a degree, and that is a big part of his personality, and maybe that's not important to the character, but you sort of are asking yourself, is he on the spectrum? Is that playing a role in his character development? So on and so forth. And again, it doesn't really affect much, but it's a question that I think viewers will continue to ask as this movie, as The Amateur, plays out. Considering this film moves around the world, we're in the United States, we're in Spain, we're in France, we're in the UK, it's a relatively fluid film. I think that Hawes does this relatively well in keeping things moving. It's incredibly meticulous, and it is slow moving intentionally, and I think that that's necessary to develop drama and suspense in this film. And again, it flows pretty nicely, but there are a handful of moments that I felt were out of character for the film as a whole, and it made moments in the film feel a bit disjointed. And that plays into the idea that Charlie, the character that Rami Malek plays, there are moments in which his personality shifts, and I don't think that I blame him for that. I don't think that is his doing. I blame that more on the direction of this film. I think that's probably what this is probably Hawes saying, shift the character a little bit. But it's sort of a roller coaster, and not in the sense that he's happy one moment and mad another, and that would make a lot of sense. It's where his personality is a bit disjointed, and maybe bipolar is not the right word, but struggling to maintain some semblance of balance here. And I don't attest that to the character's experience in the film, but again, to Hawes' direction, or maybe a bit of discrepancy in the writing. I know that this is based on a novel. I don't know anything about the novel other than what I just saw on screen, but I don't know where there's separation and what is actually true to the story, and if maybe the screenplay was a little bit different in the dialogue and things that they developed for this character in the film varies from what you might read in the novel. But I think it's a fun film. I think it does a really good job of building suspense. I think Rami Malek is a fantastic actor. I wish that John Barenthal had played a larger role and not a really insignificant, inconsequential role in this film. Fishburne is fantastic, and the other characters that play into it are really good as well, and I think that they serve a purpose, most of them. But there are little hiccups here and there, again, where I felt the narrative was a bit wonky in terms of shifting in directions that weren't necessary or just didn't make sense for the narrative. And then with Charlie being sort of an enigma, but then pieces of his personality coming out that don't make sense and you don't ever see again, and there was no lead up to that, and they just seemed out of place, and the character felt frumpy at times. Overall, I think The Amateur is a really cool film. If you like The Accountant, you'll enjoy this. If you like the Bourne films, you'll like this. If honestly, even if you like the Bond films, you'll probably find something to appreciate about this. There's a lot of this it's sort of like espionage, and it's like a spy thriller, sort of. He's not a spy, but you can see how it may blend into that subgenre a little bit. So if you like any of those films or any of those franchises, I think that this film will appeal to you, and it has a really great cast that carries out and executes very well. I will give The Amateur a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a film that you could probably pay to watch when it's available on demand or Amazon Prime or whatever it is. But again, those moments that seem to fracture the narrative and the character is what sort of did the film in for me. I think it's still a very good film. It's very enjoyable. There was never a time when I went, this stinks, or I don't like this anymore. But I wish that they had been more fluid, which is something they did very well for the majority of the film. But there were, again, these moments that steal from the fluidity, and that's where it lost about a half a point for me. So a 7.5 out of 10 on The Amateur. And until next time, peace.